All Blacks and Scotland folks have just played out a bit of a thriller at Murrayfield, but once again it is an All Blacks victory. Razor holds on to that record for now. It was looking pretty comfortable for a while. It was 17 points to nil. And then 17 unanswered points from the Scots made it a real nail-biter. The All Blacks had some massive defensive plays, and the Scots will be disappointed with how many times they came ever so close to that All Blacks line. Couldn't quite land that finishing blow. And then Damen McKenzie for the All Blacks kind of pulls it out of the fire with a try and a penalty to take it just beyond the Scots at the death. We didn't get the scrum dominance we wanted from an All Blacks perspective, but as I said, the Scots, Darcy Graham getting held up and tackled on the sideline as he was about to score, Hutchinson getting held up, Schoeman knocking it on, like right on the All Blacks line. How many chances did they have that just weren't finished off? And 3 yellow cards to the All Blacks. Still an All Blacks win. We'll go through some of the key events and the stats. You guys can let us know your thoughts, and I'll go take some blood pressure medication, I think, because that was a proper nail-biter. The All Blacks got off to a flying start. I mean, the game was looking... All Blacks were looking to keep the ball in hand early, and that man, Josh Lord, who for a second week in a row has had a pretty good game for the ABs. He's kind of a much maligned player over here in NZ for, I don't know, for not deserving of a spot because he has such limited time on the rugby field, really, with all the injuries he's had. But man, he's looked the part. Credit to him, and all his detractors, including myself at times, can take a wee step back because he picked the ball up at the back of a ruck, one-handed straight through, and then Cam Roy with a support line. Nobody saw that coming. And 7 points to nil. Cracking start from the ABs. Perfect. In white. White jerseys for this one. And good way to kind of settle things down because the crowd was sounding in good voice at Murrayfield as they are, looking to be in attendance as the Scots get their first win over the ABs. Scots' first attack looked pretty promising, and you had the two wingers, Graham and Steyn, kind of swapping wings early, which they did a little bit, but not largely throughout the course of the match, but they did it early, but they ended up knocking it on in the All Blacks 22, so it felt like one shot landed, one shot missed, which is, like, in the scheme of things, a little bit, it's going to be a little bit of a theme for the Scots, I'm afraid. The game was pretty open, though, and there was much less kicking than we usually see at, like, Tier 1 international men's rugby. The kick count was just lower. And as much as I like a good tactical kicking battle, seeing the boys have a crack was pretty pleasing on the eye, especially seeing as the kickoff time for this one. For those of us in NZ, the clock was still reading 4, so pretty early kickoff, but it was easy on the eye, which made it nice. And the All Blacks had loads of phases in the Scottish 22. The Scots were under a heap of pressure, and it was potentially one of the better Scottish defensive phases where they actually limited the All Blacks' chances, and the All Blacks ended up coming away with nothing from a heap of pressure. Phases, advantage, 5-metre tap. Again, phases, Scottish defence holds. Yellow card warning for the Scots for too many offsides. All Blacks go 5-metre scrum. And, nothing comes of it. They shut it down. I thought the All Blacks scrum was going to absolutely turn the screws on the Scots. If memory serves, the penalty count at scrum time was 1 each, which is a cracking result for the Scots because they're without their premier tight head in Xander Fagerson. I mean, obviously, we're without Tyrell Lomax as well, but I thought our scrummaging depth was better than Scotland's, but I don't know, it didn't really prove to be a decisive factor in this game, which was not what I was expecting, but knock on by Tuipulotu. Great defence from Scotland. They hang on. Then we got a 50-22 from Finn Russell on 23 minutes, which set them up with a great platform. They had wide ball, Kinghorn to Darcy Graham held up. That's like the first, in the scheme of things for this game, that's the first real, I probably should have scored, could have scored. Cracking defence from the ABs to hold them up there. And then 27 minutes you had All Blacks getting some more points on the board. The yellow card warning, I guess, had expired. Not that long later, but you had Caleb Clark, who goes off late in the game with an HIA, which he fails, which is concerning ahead of the England game next week. But he chases a Cam Roy kick, does really well to pressure Darcy Graham, who's fielding the kick. Darcy Graham tries to step Caleb so he can kind of, I guess, kick unimpeded, but Caleb brings him down. He takes him into touch. It's a great bit of work rate from Caleb Clark. And then from those resulting phases from the All Blacks attack, we end up getting a penalty, which the All Blacks slot to make it a 10-0 lead. Then we get some stupid stuff from the ABs because Leroy Carter, who's, I mean, maybe not with Caleb Clark getting an HIFL, but he's starting to risk his starting spot for the ABs with a stupid trip on Darcy Graham. You can't get away with tripping guys these days. There's cameras everywhere. Half the crowd saw it. You heard them groan as soon as Leroy did it. He tripped Darcy Graham. They go back and have a look at it. He gets himself yellow carded. Stupid, cynical play. Scots go for a line-out, phases again, and Hutchinson held up. So the boys bail Carter out of jail for that one, but you're not going to keep your spot if you do that kind of thing. You need to be like offering more around the park to balance out that kind of stupid behaviour, which I'm not sure we get Leroy Carter's best performance in this one, but yeah, that's his biggest highlight of the game, which is not one you want to be highlighting. 39 minutes, you get a Scottish forward pass. You get a scrum, which gets a penalty for New Zealand, which is the only scrum penalty we win in the game. It had been holding up until then. It would hold after that. But this is kind of going to be a brutal one, I guess, from a Scottish point of view, because it's that forward pass which leads to that scrum, which leads to the advantage, which has then got Bodie Barrett at 9, as we've got the advantage. He flicks it out. We get Will Jordan to Satiti. Satiti with the big break. Everyone just kind of holds off him. It's a bizarre one, but he's got some pace for a loose forward. And then Will Jordan with the support line goes over for another try. 17-0. As an All Blacks fan, I'm thinking it's pretty hunky-dory at 17-0. And despite the fact that the Scots have had a couple of clear-cut chances not taken in terms of being held up, like the All Blacks have edged the possession. Territory stats are even, but the line breaks is 5-1. The run meters is 314 to 164. The All Blacks are looking pretty good value. Pretty good value for the lead. There's been 9 kicks apiece, which, as I said, is pretty low. Like, watching some other teams play, you can see one team kick almost 40 times a game. So to have 18 kicks in one half of rugby, it's kind of on the low side. The All Blacks have had 10 more carries than the Scots, but, you know, as I said, almost double the meters. So the All Blacks have looked the better of the two sides, despite both sides having their chances. The yellow card ends in the second half, and it finishes 7-0 for the AB, so they'll be, you know, decently pleased with the way the Leroy Carter yellow card ended, because they didn't concede any points. But the Scots do get themselves on the board to start the second half, which is just what the game needed, I feel like, because if the All Blacks score first, I think she's all over. But Ashman, from a 5-metre line-out attacking maul, and yeah, he goes over, and Savia gets yellow carded, because to be fair, there had been a fair few penalties in the build-up against the ABs for that one. So back to 15, then back to 14 for the ABs, and Ashman gets the Scots on the board, 17-7. And then as the All Blacks get a chance to scrum not too long later, you feel like they want to milk the penalty, but they end up conceding a penalty at scrum time for not driving straight. The Scots maul again. This time the maul doesn't get the pay, but they are able to get the ball wide through the hands. Kinghorn to Steyn, and suddenly we're at bloody 14-17. The Scots bang to start the second half. 5-minute flurry, and the AB's back down to 14, like I mentioned. So this goes from being a pretty comfortable 17-0, another All Blacks victory over the Scots, to suddenly we are absolutely game on. And then, like, the All Blacks just were not in the game. We, partly, I guess, with the captain in the bin, but the All Blacks looked like a deer in the headlights. At 6s and 7s, man. Couldn't catch high balls, conceding penalties at the breakdown. Ben White went very close to a try, and thankfully for the All Blacks, Pierre Schoeman, under some defensive pressure from the ABs, he knocks it on pretty much right over the line. So, bit of a get out of jail, but not for long, because then you got Darcy Graham seemingly scoring in the corner just a few minutes later, but Roygaard, heck of a tackle from him, means Darcy Graham just loses it right as he's going to score the damn thing. If not for these defensive plays from the ABs, the Scots are in front And who knows what happens if they get their noses in front. All Blacks go back into the shells. Murrayfield crowd comes more alive than it already is. That's another defensive bit of holding. And just when it looks like the All Blacks are maybe going to get some momentum, because they did win a penalty at the breakdown through Luckeye, their attacking lineout immediately got intercepted by Dempsey, who runs half the bloody field. Thankfully for us, it wasn't a back who got the intercept, but it was a hell of a one-handed take from him. Go through some phases, but ends in a knock-on. So we are living dangerously. The All Blacks did go offside in front of the kicker not too long later, which Finn Russell duly slotted. So it's 17 unanswered points from the Scots. And as I said, barring some big defensive plays from the ABs, we're probably behind. It's all Scotland in the second half. Then Satiti gets himself yellow carded, and I'm genuinely very worried about how this is going to go. It's a one-handed attempted intercept, but he ends up not catching it, and these days that's always ruled as a deliberate knock-on, and because there's a Scottish man outside him, it's a line break opportunity not able to be taken, so it is a yellow card for Satiti. That's a fair call. I don't like that rule, but that's a fair call. That's a yellow card all day long. And, yeah, it's all back to Scotland. We keep getting peppered with the high balls. Fortunately for the ABs, the Scots can't catch them either. Like, the All Blacks aren't catching them defensively, but the Scots kind of keep knocking them on as well. And then there's the moment. I feel like that this game swings back the All Blacks' direction. It is the Damen McKenzie 50-22. Because the All Blacks had a lot of phases. It was kind of going a bit lateral. But then out the back to D-Mac, who slots a 50-22. That gives us a 5-metre line out. Maul. The Maul gets advantage. Then the yellow card is over. We go for touch, Maul it, advantage again. And then how the hell does Damen McKenzie score this try in the corner? Like, they spin it wide. It's a bouncing pass to Lester Fainga'anuku. He looks like he might charge onto it, but he's tackled. But he's able to free the hands. And we get D-Mac, who heads for the corner, but Kinghorn is all over, and I'm shaking my head thinking at least we're going to go back for the advantage. But somehow he rides the tackle of Kinghorn, almost throws Kinghorn into touch, and then turns his back, dots it down with the ball beside his hip. How he stayed in the field of play, how he got rid of Kinghorn, is just a miracle play. All Blacks back in front, 22 points to 17. He misses the conversion because he's taken himself. Shot clock is running down. He doesn't get close with the conversion. But goodness me, what a clutch play from D-Mac. Back-to-back clutch plays, really. And then on 78 minutes, when the Scots concede another penalty at maul time, D-Mac has a chance to end it, which he does. 25 points to 17 with that penalty. Takes it to a 2-score game. Stats-wise, man, the Scots finished with 61% territory. It was even almost at halftime, wasn't it? It was even at halftime. So they dominate the second half territory. Possession finishes 52-48. Remember, the All Blacks had edged it at halftime. The Scots edged it at full-time, which means they had more second half possession. The line breaks, remember, it was All Blacks at halftime. It finishes 7-6, but that means it was 4-2 in the second half. So the Scots, more opportunities in the second. 3 yellow cards for the ABs, but the All Blacks tackled at 91%, which is class. I mean, the Scots are at 88, which is not much behind, but the All Blacks broke 21 tackles to Scotland's 17. So I feel like this is a big defensive shift at times to hold the Scots out, man. I mean, Luckeye, 20 tackles and 2 turnovers, 1. Josh Lord, 19 tackles. Like I said, that guy gets criticised, but he had a good shift here. Dempsey for Scotland had 18 carries and 110 metres, including that intercept, which is impressive. Graham had 4 defenders beaten. Couple of chances to score. Not quite taken from him. Leicester beat 4 tackles as well for the ABs. But yeah, it is another ding-dong battle between the Scots and the ABs. I feel like it's going to happen. Scots are going to get this record at some point. This was a pretty good opportunity with the 3 yellows, but not quite to be. All Blacks take on England next week. Geez, if we can't catch a high ball, we are going to struggle. We're going to struggle against England with their line speed, but hey, we put on some good defensive plays. I don't want to be pessimistic ahead of that one. We are 2 from 2 thus far on the tour. The Scots will take on Argentina. It'll be interesting to see how the Pumas go up against Wales tomorrow. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the game, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Ta-ra.